Hi everyone, welcome to FilmDirt. Let's look at the Total Recall remake that was released in 2012, starring Colin Farrell and Kate Beckinsale. Now, I've already looked at the original Total Recall with Arnold Schwarzenegger. That video should already be on my channel now by the time you listen to this. And I really enjoyed that film. It was a fun and almost comedic story that definitely looked really 80s and schlocky, if you get my meaning. And in comparison, this remake is definitely much darker straight off the bat. You can see they're going for a gritty look, but also very similar, where everything seems to be at night, whereas the original was really indoor set and all grey and moody, I guess. And this one is more outdoors, so we've got the story opened out and we've seen lots of very interesting vistas and futuristic vehicles that I love the look of in both films. And here it's always raining. It just seems very Blade Runner, where the rain gives it a unique look, which is very interesting. And you've got lots of people wearing plastic and umbrellas. It is very Blade Runner looking, which isn't a bad thing in my book, and definitely much more sinister almost. It's definitely played not for laughs like the original was. And also, when he visits Recall, it seems much more backstreet, like he's going to a strip joint, and this Recall room is the one at the back. Whereas in the original, it seemed like he was actually going to a hospital clinic, and it was much more official. I guess that's what I gathered when comparing the two. This looks like something you shouldn't really do, and it's just for a trip almost, acid trip maybe. And this brings me to my main complaint on this story, where I was hoping they'd go slightly in a different direction. I know they're following the Philip K. Dick story that the original did for the most part, but I was hoping they would just tell a different story, because I think most people that would have seen this would have seen the original as well. And what I mean is, when Quaid sits in the chair and he prepares for the chemicals to be injected in him, straight off the bat we've got the so-called trip taking place. And then you wonder, is it real or is it not real? That's part of the gag, isn't it? I was hoping they would just do it slightly differently, because we've all got our opinions on the original Total Recall, and do we think it was real, or is he really a spy and he's had his memory erased? And is it all make-believe as part of the trip? And that's what I thought it was in the original. I thought it was all just in his memory, and he would come back afterwards. But this is played out exactly the same way. And at this point it hits you that you might be seeing the same story twice, albeit told in a different way, of course. I didn't really want to see this. I just wanted to see like a reimagining of a very interesting Philip K. Dick story. And unfortunately they've gone and done exactly the same premise as they covered in the original. And also at the end, when it's deliberately left ambiguous as to whether it was within his memories or whether it was all real, it just ends suddenly as per the original. Very similar, very almost too similar to the original, which in my opinion was told in a better way and was a hell of a lot more fun. Now, I haven't seen any other reviews of this film. For you regulars to my channel, you'll know I only speak my own mind, and it may differ to the norm. I like to give my opinion just as I see it and not be influenced by others. I watched this with my sons, and after a while they were both very uninterested, and they love action movies, but unfortunately this film, although it started fairly well and I could just let the similarities go to a point, I could just hopefully get into the story, but in the second half of the film it just wasn't great, and it was very boring. And it's got all of the ingredients that we look for big action set pieces, a very competently shot car chase, albeit mostly visual effects, and good gunfights. But it was just not interesting enough. And for me, from the car chase towards the end, just lost me. It just didn't hold my attention, or anyone else's in the room for that matter. Whereas the original, it was so bizarre and so comedic, and all these characters, Michael Ironside and Arnold Schwarzenegger, are so interesting. And this isn't a dig at the actors in this movie. I think Colin Farrell is a great actor, and so is Kate Beckinsale. They both need better material. And I'd like to have seen this movie, but reimagined, just told differently. It doesn't have to follow similar beats as the original, and then throw in a very boring set pieces where we've got a car chase and a couple of gunfights and the chase in the second half of the movie, and it almost stopped the story almost just to get all this action out the way. And it was, I know the film is longer than the original, it definitely seems like it. And also what started to annoy me was the moody colour grading that they applied. I know a lot of films have this nowadays and they're not brightly lit as they once were in the 80s and 90s. But we've got a lot of the colour dialed down here and the contrast just increased. But here it just made all the cars travelling and racing a lot more fake than they should be. And I know because they're all futuristic looking, we all know that they're visual effects, and they may have built one to photograph that in front of blue screen or whatever they did. It just looked fake, even if it was real. And that's all thanks to the unnatural lighting and the colour grading. If it looked more like daylight, it may have sold the illusion a bit better and made everything a lot more interesting to look at. Now, maybe it would have looked fake unless you dial down the colour and make the contrast a lot more striking. Maybe it would help to blend everything together with the computer-generated imagery. But really, it just looked really poor. And I think they just went a little bit too hard on the extreme colour grading. It's almost sepia in places. Now, as per the original, I still think that he was in a make-believe world as part of the ride, only because it played out in a very similar way to the original. But this is just really a throwaway film. You can just forget about it, even if you last to the end, and you can throw it away much sooner into the running time if you like, which is exactly what my kids did, I think. So as you can gather, this film definitely wasn't for me. I tried to like it, as I try to like all films. I don't intentionally waste my time. Not just review a string of mediocre films just to pick holes in them. I'd much rather talk about a great movie and then dissect that. Why is it so good? Why is it holding our attention, and why does it make you think about things after you've seen it? And that's much more fun rather than wasting a couple of hours on a terrible film. So I've got to give this one 2 stars, I think. It was promising at the start, but it really just fell off the cliff almost in the second half of the film. And that's really all I can take from this. So, not recommended. Watch the original instead. And with that, thanks again for joining me to talk about this film. If you disagree with my thoughts, let me know in the comments down below. Maybe I missed what this remake was trying to say. And before I go, let me leave you with a little bit about myself. As you know, I only give my own opinion, and I'm in no way connected to any of the studios, and I don't receive free tickets or any other bonuses to release positive reviews. Thanks for joining me, and I'll speak to you again soon for another review. All the best. Take care.